so here I'm going to show you how to just sew up the edge of this so it's not flopping around. I've got a size 8 pearl cotton, and I'm just going to come in from behind, get that little flower out of the way, about 1/8 of an inch down, I suppose. All right, and then directly across from where you're coming out, insert the needle into the couple of the fibers here, and then just come down at an angle about 1/4 of an inch away from here through your front fabric again. Just tuck that little tail in under there. Okay, and then basically just make sure that you're coming straight across into the fibers, back down, 1/4 of an inch away and 1/8 of an inch down here. That way your stitches will stay straight. But if you've used wool felt, the stitches will kind of sink in. You won't see them too much. Just use a light color. You can even do a contrasting color, would be pretty. Anytime stitches show up, I think that's pretty. All right. And that's it. Basically just all the way around, hide your knots in between, and then we're gonna go ahead and sew the fabric onto it, and we'll clip these little guys right here. Okay, so that's all finished. That kind of gives more of a finished look. Nailing the edges down. And incidentally, I didn't go through the grids, just through these stitches here. And also, you know, I used a size 8 pearl cotton, but you could use anything. You could use a couple strands of sewing thread, DMC floss, whatever it is that you have. It doesn't really matter. But now, as far as getting the lining on, essentially, these little flags here, we can go ahead and clip those. Just make sure you have, you know, really sharp little scissors. And when you put the little fringy thing in there, just make sure the only thing that's in there is that fringy thing. And that'll just clip off, and then if you pull that thread, that'll hide underneath there. And when we go to join the boxes together, the sides together, you won't see those at all. But I know if you be as careful as possible, you'll be completely fine, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a little bottle of super glue just in case you accidentally clip one of these fibers. Just throw some super glue on there and you'll be fine. It's cheating a little bit, but that's okay. I mean, that's better than unraveling threads, right? Double strand of sewing thread here. And just from behind the fabric, I'm just gonna come up right on the edge. This will feel like applique if you're familiar with doing applique. Tuck the little tails in. And then same kind of thing. You're just gonna go insert it into the threads themselves, not through the grid or anything. And then just come straight out through the top of that fabric. And it's not difficult. Pull slow, because of course this is going to get caught on everything. Maybe it's a good idea to cut the fringes first so they don't get caught on them, but just for purposes of showing you this. Then I'm coming right out of here, if you can see that. I know it's black. It's like the worst color to show this in. But go ahead and then just pop it through the fibers. You know, you don't have to get too close, maybe 1/4 of an inch. We're just trying to keep it stable. So, and again, like this is the inside of the box, you won't see it. And later we're going to be putting pockets and everything. I'll show you how to do that. It's nice to have those pockets. I might have to do a couple more too. I'm running out of pocket room in my original box. So straight back through the fibers again. 1/4 of an inch away, just come right out the top there. So see already it's much more secure there. So you're just going to stitch that all the way around. Okay, so as I'm working around the box, you can see that edge looks already much neater. But I'm finding that I clip a little bit and then I'll sew a little bit. But one of the things I'm finding is if you angle, put the little fringy in like the farthest little elbow from your scissors and cut in this direction towards the lining, and that way you're ensured that when you close your scissors you're not going to cut one of the stitches. So if you just fold this back down, it's really not too bad. Just clip it, and then when you pull the fibers up, it covers all of that. And then again, you know, we're going to be doing another layer of crochet right here, so all of this will be hidden. You won't see any of that. Okay, so just to finish out that very first side, what I did was I did 3 more of those little golden leaves, so for a total of 5, and then I used them as petals instead of leaves. Popped a little sequence and a bead and more beads. And then behind that I did, it's the same pattern of leaf that we did in the freeform video, but I used black yarn here, and I continued in that same pattern until I had 13 stitches rather than 9, and then began the decreases just until I got down to those 5, and then you finish those as you did for the gold ones. So these leaves are great because you can just make them as big or as small as you want to. And then to finish out the little branches, I decided to just put some beads at the end of each branch. And how I did that was I just popped a bead where I wanted the branches to end. And you see here, go through that bead twice. These are just like little pearlescent beads, about the same size as a size 6 seed bead. If you have pearls here, you can pop those in. You can certainly use your size 6 seed beads, you know, whatever you want to end. And then here I just did a couple of little fly stitches so that there was a little spray coming out of each one. Just a little, another little detail. That's kind of fun. Working a fly stitch just above that bead. We'll go through the bead again. Go down back through that little stem again, and then just work a little double or triple or whatever you decide. And then just weave that back down into the fabric, just to hold it in place. And I already have my lining on the back, so I'm not obviously not coming all the way through. Just pop that back down. Come up through. And just clip it. And that is pretty busy, so I'm going to stop there on that freeform side. So that's going to be the front of my box. So to stitch the embroidery on, of course we want to cut it. We're going to measure out and see how we did. Pretty good, 5.5, maybe a little less. So what we want to do, so we don't have a raw edge here, is we want to cut around, leaving safe, leave it 1/2 inch. So just take a larger pair of scissors and leave this basting line on for now. We will take it off, but you can just eye this up. Just cut all that extra fabric around. And then the idea is we're going to stitch this onto another one of our crochet grids. But of course we want to fold this under. Now, folding under a double batting would be really, really thick, just too thick. So what you're going to do is just peel this batting away right here, and then take your scissors and cut all that extra batting off, you know, right along your stitch line here. And then your piece will look something like this. Okay, so we're going to stitch this on, fold this down over the batting, right along your stitch line here. And then just take a couple tacks. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry about the lighting. The sun is going in out of the clouds, messing with my lighting here. Okay, and you can see I'm just doing like maybe an inch apart. Every inch or so, I'll just make a little tack. Stitch all the way to the edge there. And then just fold this down and come right back up through. And then just keep tacking it down, just so when you're sewing it, you can manipulate this as you sew it onto the piece, but this will just help get all that extra stuff out of the way. And then again, just keep folding it along that line and tack it down until it's tacked all the way around. And then take your thread of choice, come right out the corner where your basting stitch is. And then just before you start stitching, lie it out. Right, make sure it's pretty centered as possible. Again, you can manipulate this, roll it up and forward just to get it even as you stitch. And that's just a good idea to pin it on or clip it on. Those little wonder clips, which are wonderful. And then just like you did the lining, the front of the other one, you don't have to go through the grid here. You're just going to go through a few stitches. And then make sure you manipulate this so that your needle can come out just at the basting stitch here. I'm going to go a little bit closer together on these, maybe just within 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch here, just to really get it secured down. It's kind of hard to see because I've got this mohair thing happening, but I didn't press the edges down here just because there's a lot of beadwork and that kind of thing on this, and it's just a really flimsy wool. I didn't know how well it would hold, so I think the basting thread is perfect. Okay, and then again, it's just in through a couple of the fibers and then out on the basting line. And just stop, make sure you're on the right track, fold it under a little bit more if you need to. Make sure you're not going to go over your edge on this side. A little bit smaller than 1/4 of an inch there. And then as you stitch and as you get this secured, you can do this at the end, or if you just want to see what it looks like, just pull out your basting thread here. Okay, and when you get it all stitched around, it's just going to look much more finished and ready to go. Now, it puffs up a little bit, so it's not attached to the grid anywhere. So what I think I'm going to do is make just a circle. I'm going to keep that space there, but I'm going to just outline where these beads are. So when you're doing this split stitch, it helps if you have a sharp needle so that you can split the fibers and work through all the layers. Just edged up right against those beads. I think that's just going to give a nice little outline to the inside circle. Okay, so I just made a little split stitch circle here for a border, and then as you can see here, I decided I did want to nail the edges down to the grid a little bit, so I just put a little gold line between the focal bead and this little sequence piece here. And that's it. So now it's time to go on to the crochet mandala. So this is what I made. I was trying to design as I went, and I scribbled down a bunch of notes. So I don't have the written pattern yet, but I am working on a series of patterns that'll be available soon on my Etsy store, just some PDF downloads. I want to continue on and make this a little bit bigger. I've been really eyeing up crocheted mandalas and want to try my hand at even expanding this design or making a bunch and turning it into a shawl or a blanket or a quilt or whatever. So I'm going to work on that, but so I will talk you through how I did it. I am going to cut this little felt piece into a 5.5-inch piece, and then we'll stitch this on. I may not have time to do that for this video, but for the start of the next one, I will show you how to do it if I can't include it in this one. So you can even work with a background fabric that you might have. I had lots of different felt pieces, but I kind of like the way that this pulls in this color here. But to show you what I did, I'm going to use different yarns this time. I'm really curious about the Gypsy Girl colorway and how that will play together in this mandala. So what I did was I took some of the yarns from the kit. This is the Gypsy Girl yarn tasting kit. Took a snip of each one and assigned them A through G. So as I'll be talking you through this mandala, I'll be referring to the colors through their letters. So I would say choose 7 yarns. Keep them under worsted weight yarns, you know, like sport weight, sock weight. This is probably the thickest yarn. This is the silk that I include in the kit. It's a worsted, but we're just going to use it in a little section of the mandala. Once you have your yarns assigned, we're going to just go ahead and start with A. I'm using a 3mm hook. Of course, you can use any hook that renders you a nice solid stitch. You know, we'll keep measuring it as we go because obviously we want to make sure that this is 5.5 inches wide and tall, so it will fit on the box square. So with yarn A, this is where you want the center. Let's have this out so we can look at it. Okay, so we'll be starting in the center, working out. Chain 4. And then join with a slip stitch. Just make sure your chain is straight. Chain 3, which will count as your first double crochet, and then work 15 double crochets into the center of the ring here. Just going to have to dig and find the center. So you can work 15 all the way around. So when you count that first chain 3 that you did, you'll have 16 double crochets. Just going in the same hole. And as you stitch, you can take the side of the hole and just scooch those stitches down so that they fit. Because obviously you don't want to go past this point right there. Okay, so then when you go to count them, rather than counting the stitches, it's easier to just count the legs of the crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 14, 15, 16. And then find that chain 3, slip stitch it, cut it and pull it through. Okay, with yarn B, I'm just going to insert the hook to the top of the very first stitch, slip stitch to join it, everything tight, and then chain 8. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7. That counts as a double crochet and a chain 5, because here on out now we're going to skip a double crochet into the next stitch, and chain 5. Skip a stitch, double crochet into the next stitch. And then we'll measure after this and we'll see how it compares to my first one and how yours compares to this one that I'm doing. It's okay if it's a little off, you know, we can always adjust. Just pull your loops as you go. Chain 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, skip 1, double crochet into the next. When we get around to the end, we're going to do something a little bit different just so we don't, to keep it consistent, we want that little post there. So you chain 2, 1, 2. You're going to double crochet into the top of the 3rd stitch coming up. And just snip it and end it. Okay, so this measures about 2 inches square. And at this point, if these tails are going to drive you crazy, you can go ahead and weave them in as you go. That's kind of what I did, because otherwise it just gets to be kind of a mess. Now, to compare it to my original one, this one seems like it's going to be a little bit bigger. The circle's the same, but I used a heavier yarn for the yarn B than I did originally, where yarn B ends right here. This is significantly bigger, but you know what, we're going to roll with it. And we'll just see, because I know some of you guys aren't going to be completely perfectly in size with me, so let's just try it out and see. At least you'll get the pattern down, and we can always manipulate it. This can be just a little bit bigger. As you can see, it's 5.5 exactly, so we'll see what happens. It'll be a little experiment. You know, this is all just freeform play. So I'm going to go ahead and weave these ends in, and then we're going to go ahead and make these picots. So we'll get out yarn C, which is where I have this light gray here. Okay, so moving on with yarn C, which is where I have the green, and again where I have that light gray. Just join into, make sure you have the right side facing, just any single loop that you feel like you want to go into. Join yarn C with a slip stitch, and you'll chain 1, single crochet in the same space. I'm going to move that over just a little bit so it's kind of on the side there. Okay, and then chain 3, 1, 2, 3, single crochet in the same space. So you have a little loop. Okay, and then chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to do a picot 4. So what that is chain 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then in the 4th chain from the hook, 1, 2, 3, 4, slip stitch. Put a little picot in there. Chain 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then in that space, we're going to do a single crochet, chain 3, single crochet in the same space. So that's what you're going to alternate. Put a little shell in here, picot, shell. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, picot 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, count back 1, 2, 3, 4, slip stitch in the bottom loop. Make sure that when you go in for a slip stitch, you've got, it's a little tricky to get into sometimes, just kind of bury it in there so you have 2 loops on the hook, because otherwise you're going to stretch a stitch out of place. It's too much tension if you just go into the top loop. And then chain 4, 1, single crochet, chain 3, single crochet into the same. And then slip stitch it to the top of that first single crochet. Okay, and then you can just clip it and pull it through. And then when we measure that guy, we've got just over 3 inches. So when we hold it up to this one, it really kind of evened itself out there, didn't it? A little bit bigger still, but this gray yarn C went from here to here. So we'll have a little bit more room to work here. It might just change the whole look. I'm not sure. Let's continue on and we will see. So with yarn D, which I'm using a really thin lace yarn here, so we'll see how this works out. But we're going to bend everything forward and work behind the last 2 rows that we did by going into those missed double crochets from that very first row and put a single crochet in there. Chain 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then bending this forward, finding the next double crochet around that original circle, work a single crochet. So do that all the way around, but don't cut your yarn because we're going to use the same yarn to work on top of these loops. Okay, so to continue, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then work in the missed double crochet from before, single crochet all the way around. Just slip stitch right back into that first stitch of the round that you're working on. And then with the same yarn, chain 2, we're going to leave that chain 7 free, but we're going to come up here to the chain 3 space in the previous round and do a single crochet, a double crochet, and then a single crochet all in that same stitch. Chain 2, bend the picot forward, and work a single crochet in the single crochet between the chain 7 rounds. It'll be of the row of the same color that you're using. Then chain 2, fold this back up, do single crochet, double, single, chain 2, and then going back down, single crochet in the top of the single crochet of the previous round, same color. So we're filling in a little bit of the space with that darker color or whatever color you're using. And really integrating and mingling the colors together. Okay, so one more time after that single crochet, chain 2, going back up to the previous color, single crochet, double crochet, single crochet, chain 2 to get yourself back down, to be able to single crochet on the other side of that chain 7 space. So what's happening is you're leaving the chain 7 space free, and you're leaving the picots free, but you are working behind the picots and behind all of the work. You've got 2 loops working here. Your chain 7, which is going to be left untouched for now. And when you bend those down, you can see these. So it's pretty both sides, really. Okay, and then when you lay it flat, you'll have a little mound of a new color in between those picots. Okay, so work that all the way around. Okay, and then when you're all the way back around, you've done your last single, double, single, and your chain 2. Just come all the way back here and just kind of dig down in there, and then slip stitch right at the top of it. And then you can go ahead and cut this yarn and then weave those yarn ends in. Like this guy might just kind of go in, and I like to split the fibers of each stitch rather than just go under a stitch. I think it holds it a little bit better. But if you just weave it even right back down into the base of it, and then maybe around the circle a few stitches. Okay, I'm super excited to get this turquoise color in here where I have the black. It should be a pretty nice little addition. So we're going to be working in the front of the work this time. Always start with a slip knot on your hook. Reach between the picot and work a single crochet in the single crochet. And this is in the row that we just did. So it's in this rust color. And then chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, double crochet in the double crochet. There's the first, the second, then chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, then again right in between, reach in the picot. Once you get your hook in the single crochet, make sure your yarn is in the front and your picot is bent back, and you're going to single crochet in that. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, double crochet in the double crochet of the previous round. And you'll work that all the way around. I already love it. Okay, then when you get back around, just make sure you're always bending your little picot back. Slip stitch inside the single crochet there, pull it through, And let's put that guy towards the back. And that just added such a nice pop of color. I love it. Okay, and you see how it's all in the front here. All the picots are behind. So just make sure yours looks the same. And then we're going to go back to the original color A. Start with a slip stitch on your hook. And then remember that chain 7 row, so deep, looking back on the back of the work, you've got this little row of free chain 7s. Single crochet into the loop itself. Chain 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then single crochet in the next space. Right, so bring everything forward. We're working behind the work this time. Single crochet. So just do that all the way around. You'll have 8 loops. Okay, on your very last one, slip stitch into that first single crochet, but don't cut your yarn. We're going to continue on with this original yarn A. Okay, so then just moving right forward, still working in the back, so all of this stuff is bunched forward. You're going to do 2 singles. This is all within the loop, just right next to each other. One half double, which is kind of like going like a double if you're not familiar with this, and then yarning over and pulling through all 3. It's a step between a single and a double. So we're just making our little fan taller here. So then do a double crochet next to that. Then a triple, so you yarn over twice, go into the loop, and pull the yarn through 1, 2, 3. That'll be the top of our arc there. So you're going to do a double, a half double, and then 2 singles. Okay, then when you come up to the next loop, before you go into that loop, you're going to work a single crochet around the post. Let me do that slowly. So you've got your double crochet from your previous round. You're going to work a single crochet around the post. So do you see that? You come behind it and then in front of it. Work your single crochet, and then the next loop you'll be able to single crochet, do that whole pattern again where it's 2 single crochets, a half double, a double, a triple or treble. Sometimes you'll see it as treble crochet, a double, a half double, 2 singles, and then pull that previous loop and do a single crochet around the post, and then continue along so that your picots now are interwoven through these yarns. It'll look really cool. Okay, and then once you get all the way back around, Make sure you single crochet in the front around the post of the double crochet, and then reach back around here and slip stitch in that very first single crochet. Cut it and pull it through. So now we have, and our piece shouldn't have grown too much because we're working pretty much on the inside. About 3.5 by 3.5 is what my piece measures now. All the picots should be sitting in front of the red, where I have the red. And let's see where we're at here. Still a little bit bigger, but still pretty much on track. Okay, so with yarn G, I know I skipped F, but it was just a snafu in my own notes. So we will go to F, I promise, but you're not doing anything wrong. I screwed it up. So with yarn G, and this is that yummy silk, go ahead and go into your picot and the treble crochet, which is the tallest stitch in that loop, in that arc you did in the previous round, and work a single crochet. So that is coming through all of those stitches. Till you have your original 2 loops, or your new loop and the original loop, and single crochet. Then chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then work a treble, on top of this single crochet that you did on top of the post stitch from before. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're going to work a single in the picot and the treble. So again, that's coming through all the stitches till you have 2 loops, yarn over and go through 2, just a single crochet. And then a chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and work a treble on top of that single crochet. All right, so you're going to be alternating between the single, treble, with 4 chains in between. So you do that all the way around, and don't cut the yarn. Our next row will be with this yarn G as well. Okay, so once you're all the way around and you've done your last chain 4, go ahead and slip stitch into the top of your starting single crochet. And then continuing on with the same color in the next row, you're going to slip stitch into the loop, chain 3, repeat that, slip stitch, chain 3, and then slip stitch into that same loop again. So you'll have two little bumps on that. Okay, and then just to skip this treble crochet, you're going to just chain 1, and then repeat that for every chain 4 space of the previous round. So it's slip stitch, chain 3, same space, slip stitch, chain 3, slip stitch, still working in that loop. We're going to skip the single crochet and chain 1, and then just continue along, slip stitch, chain 1, 2, 3, same space slip stitch, 1, 2, 3, slip stitch, chain 1 to skip the stitch. Okay, when you do your last chain 3 slip stitch, go ahead and chain 1 and then slip stitch into that first single crochet that you did. And then we'll end off this color. Pull it through. And then let's just compare the two. So this is putting us right, the brown is where I have the gold here. And actually not too far off in size, a little bit bigger. But what's really interesting to me is how different they look. Now we're gonna do some more work right in here to fill these spaces. But how even the center, how that just pops up because this yarn was a little bit heavier. So I think that's a really cool effect and one I wouldn't have planned for, but one that I love. Another little happy accident. Thank you, Bob Ross, for the reference. And so now we are going to go back and do yarn F, the one I skipped, is just where I have the white. So this one's a lighter color. Just as always, starting with a slip knot on the hook. Chain 5. And then all the way down in the front here, you're going to work a single crochet around the post of the single crochet on top of the yarn E stitch. Chain 5. Single crochet in the chain 1 space above the picot. Chain 5. Come back down here to the top of that yarn E, and you'll see a little single crochet on top. You're just going to go into it from right to left, essentially, and work a single crochet. And then again, chain 5, work into the slip stitch above that picot. So we're going to create a little V on the inside here. And then when you get around to the very beginning again, slip stitch into your beginning single crochet, and then don't cut the yarn because we're going to use this to expand the outside a little bit. So we're going to chain 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're going to picot 4, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Count down 1, 2, 3, and in the 4th stitch, make a slip stitch, then chain 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and then we're going to do a little tricky move here. See how we could lift that up to single crochet into that, but it wants to lean down. So I thought maybe it would be fun to work in between those two legs, you know, if you push that stitch down, and then again into that same stitch, which is the chain 1 space from the row before. That might be kind of cool. Kind of creates an extra little bit of texture there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, picot 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, slip stitch in the 4th to picot, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, working in between the legs of the stitches and into the chain 1 space of the row before. You'll work a single crochet, and then we'll measure that out. So you'll have these little picots that are working to connect the top of the arc here with the background. When you get all the way back around, we want this to look the same as that. So my answer to that is just bring this little guy up front. 1, 2, we'll go into the chain, and then we'll join it, the slip stitch in the back, just kind of bury it in there, and just bring it all front and slip stitch it. This little side here has a little bit more bulk, but by the time it's all said and done and we add the other stuff, you won't see it. Clip it and end it. So right now we're at 5 inches. Let's compare it to this one. So where all the little white picots are my gold. So we are going to work some more things in here, and it may shrink things up, but we're pretty much on track. Like, we can definitely make this one work for the 5.5 inch square. Go ahead and weave in all of your ends into the back. You can see the back is just as pretty. And then I'm actually going to end the video here. I know we're not quite finished with the mandala, but honestly, I think this video is nearing an hour. I try to keep these under an hour. And in the spirit of a cliffhanger, that's where we're going to end. I'm so sorry. It is almost 10 o'clock on Saturday night. I had mentioned that I bought some property. I've been down there all week working on it. I will tell you more about that. We will finish this mandala and sew it to the background. And I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I cannot wait to see what you guys are doing. Please post pictures to Mandala Unplugged. The pattern, again, I am going to be making a series of downloadable PDFs that I'll have for sale on my Etsy store. But to thank everybody who purchased any part of any kit for me for this project, I am keeping track of you, and I'd like to thank you by giving you the professionally written pattern for this mandala once it is finished. But they will be available for anyone to purchase, and I'm hoping to create a larger one. Maybe just keep going with this one since this isn't part of my colorway. This is the Gypsy Girl color. We'll see what happens with some more yarns, and I will definitely be writing that out as well. So have a great week and post your pictures, and I will tell you more about this property. It's going to be my life's work, but I love it. It's in a perfect location and it's just beautiful. I will leave you with a few pictures so you know what the heck we've been doing all week long. Thanks so much. Take care. Happy stitching, and we'll see you next Sunday.